Welcome to Revenge Report. Don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more. Let's dive in. I landed in Seattle on 2 hours of sleep, still reeking of airport coffee and recycled air. My cousin Amanda's wedding was already halfway through the reception by the time I pulled into the Vineyard parking lot. I didn't even change out of my black shift dress, just swiped on some lip balm and headed straight to the bar. The whole place looked like a Pinterest board exploded. Fairy lights, overpriced hydrangeas, a string quartet playing Coldplay covers. I skipped the photo line, ignored the bouquet toss, and found a quiet spot on the back patio with a whiskey sour. I figured I'd ride out the night without drawing attention. Should have known better. Really? My mom snapped, heels clicking across the stone like gunshots. You're just gonna hide out here? I didn't even turn around. I'm tired. Took the red eye, she crossed her arms. Everyone else is making an effort. You're sulking. You're ruining Amanda's day. Quick note, before we start, how's your day going and where are you joining from? I stood up straighter, mostly out of habit. I'm not sulking. I just got in an hour ago. Yeah, and you couldn't even make it to family photos? I didn't answer. She didn't wait. You never try, Sarah. Every single event, it's like you're allergic to participating. I opened my mouth, but then came Aunt Carol with her signature faux concerned smile. Oh, she's just shy. Not everyone marries a tech wonderkin like Amanda. Maybe Sarah's still figuring it out? I blinked. I'm 34. Exactly, she said, sipping her rosé like it was a mic drop. Carol always had this way of talking to me like I was a stray someone forgot to pick up. And every time she brought up Amanda's new husband, Tyler, some AI startup guy with an MBA and a Tesla, it felt like I was being measured against some invisible ruler. Well, what do you even do these days? She asked, pretending she didn't already think she knew. Same as always, I muttered. My mom chimed in. That admin job with the oil company? Carol nodded, like it confirmed everything. Oh, right. Filing papers, office work, I didn't correct them. I took another sip of my drink instead. It wasn't worth it. Not here. Carol laughed. You know, Tyler's team just got invited to pitch at TechCrunch. Real movers and shakers. But hey, someone's got to keep the printers running. I clenched my jaw so hard I thought I felt a molar shift. My fingers tapped against the glass, but I kept my voice flat. Glad Amanda found someone impressive. They smiled like I'd agreed with them. And just like that, they turned back toward the lights, ready to rejoin the party. I stayed behind. Let them think I was invisible. It made things easier. I was halfway through my second whiskey when Amanda showed up in a glittery white sheath dress that probably cost more than my flight. Her smile was tight but polite, like she was checking on a misbehaving toddler she didn't want ruining the grown-up table. There you are, she sang, looping her arm around Tyler's. I told him you'd be hiding. Tyler looked like a walking LinkedIn profile. Slick hair, shiny shoes, that weird smug, calm tech guys always have. We've been meaning to ask, he said. What is it you actually do again? I swallowed the last of my drink and forced a smile. I manage project portfolios in the energy sector. They both blinked. Oh, Amanda said, glancing toward the reception tent. Tyler tilted his head like he was trying to decipher a foreign language, like scheduling meetings and stuff. I didn't answer right away. And then, just my luck, here came Jake and Megan. He had the sleeves of his dress shirt rolled up like he'd just closed a six-figure deal. Megan's heels clicked like warning shots as they stepped onto the patio. Look what we found, Jake said. The family ghost. I raised a brow. Didn't know I died. Megan laughed too loudly, already sipping a cocktail with a flower in it. We thought you might have moved to Mars. Nope, just Houston. Jake looked at Tyler, then at me. Still doing that oil paperwork? I nodded, just once. No use explaining it again. Jake always thought I was wasting my time. He sold houses and thought that made him an empire builder. Amanda leaned forward, almost bouncing. Wait, what does that mean though? Energy sector? Oil paperwork? Tyler added, yeah, are you with like Exxon or something? I shook my head. It's more complex than that. Oh, come on, Carol said, walking up with another glass of wine. She's always been cagey about her job. I remember when she was little, she wanted to be a lawyer. She looked at Tyler like he was a Harvard professor instead of a Stanford dropout. She could have gone into law like you, she said sweetly. I didn't want to be a lawyer, I said. Carol smiled, fake as ever. Well, sure, but you could have done something with that brain. Amanda clapped her hands like she was announcing a brunch special. You should just move here. There's so much opportunity in Seattle. You could do something normal. Normal. I looked at all of them standing there, smiling, nodding, pretending this conversation wasn't a full-on roast. Right, I said, my voice flat. Because managing energy infrastructure isn't normal. Tyler chuckled, clearly confused. I mean, do you actually do any of the technical stuff? Depends what you mean by technical, I said. But yeah, a lot of it Jake was already checking his phone. Megan was scanning for someone more interesting to talk to. Amanda was adjusting her bracelet like I was a bad smell she couldn't quite place. Carol took another sip of wine. Sweetie, if you ever want to shadow Tyler's firm for a day, I'm sure they'd let you see how real operations run. I let out a short laugh. I think I've got that covered. Amanda tilted her head. But wouldn't it be easier to just start over here? I mean, Houston's not really up and coming. Tyler leaned in slightly. Yeah, and honestly, oil's kind of a dying industry, right? I didn't flinch. Not the way we do it. He smiled like he didn't believe me. Carol tapped her wine glass. You're so stubborn sometimes. Always have been. And that was it. I wasn't angry. I was numb. This wasn't new, just louder. They turned back toward the tent, already done with me. Amanda tossed a look over her shoulder. We just want you to be happy, you know? I didn't answer. I watched them walk away instead, Tyler's hand on Amanda's lower back like he owned the place. Jake making a joke about champagne flutes, Carol already hunting for more people to impress. I stood there in heels that hurt, biting back the urge to scream. Not because they misunderstood me, but because they didn't even try. I was just about to head back to the bar when a deep voice stopped me cold. Excuse me, are you the Sarah Cooper? I turned and saw him. The father-in-law. Tall, gray hair, expensive watch, the kind of posture you don't lose after 30 years running boardrooms. His suit probably cost more than my rent. I stood up straighter before I could stop myself. Yes, sir. He extended his hand. James Whitmore. Tyler's father. I shook it. Firm grip, dry palm, old school. I just had a conversation with your dad, he said, voice calm but curious. He told me you oversee executive risk for a national petroleum group? I glanced past him and saw my father near the bar, fiddling with his tie, avoiding eye contact like a teenager who just got caught lying. Of course he looked nervous. He's kept my job vague for years, probably because he didn't know how to explain it without sounding like he was bragging, or maybe because no one ever asked. Yes, that's right, I said. The old man didn't blink. What exactly does that mean, if you don't mind me asking? I met his eyes. Strategic risk mitigation and crisis operations across North American assets. Silence. Jake stopped mid-sentence. Megan lowered her glass. Amanda furrowed her brow like I'd spoken in code. Tyler's jaw twitched. The air shifted. James nodded once, slow and thoughtful. Interesting. Amanda's mouth opened, but nothing came out. Megan blinked like her contacts were glitching. Even Carol, who never met a pause she didn't fill with condescension, kept quiet. Tyler stepped forward. Wait, so you handle emergencies? More than that, I said. We run high-level simulations, coordinate national response strategy, manage infrastructure risk, supply chain failure points, environmental mitigation, threat escalation protocols. I lead a team that monitors 1,200 critical systems, including energy corridors and refinery nodes across the country. James gave a low whistle. Impressive, Jake let out a small scoff. Sounds complicated. It is, I said. That's the point. My dad still hadn't moved. I could see him across the lawn, watching this unfold like a man waiting to see if the fireworks explode or misfire. James crossed his arms, eyes locked on mine. And what's your role exactly? I run the executive operations desk for national risk oversight. Every pipeline, refinery, storage facility, offshore platform between Anchorage and Corpus Christi, if it goes sideways, my phone rings. Carol finally found her voice. You mean you're in charge of all that? I turned my head toward her. Yes. Tyler looked at James, then at me. So you don't just work in energy. You run, what? The crisis team? I lead the National Contingency Group, I said. I manage 600 engineers and field operators across 11 states. Jake cleared his throat. Since when? Since 3 years ago. Amanda blinked. You've been doing that this whole time? I nodded once. James smiled. Not wide, just enough to show he understood exactly what just happened. Well, he said, glancing around, I'd say we underestimated you. I didn't say anything. I didn't need to. The silence said it for me. Carol looked like she'd swallowed a lemon. Amanda kept shifting on her heels. Tyler opened his mouth twice and closed it again. James looked back toward the party. You planning to stay long? Long enough. He nodded again. Glad we spoke. He gave a short handshake, nothing performative, and turned back toward the main tent. The others were still staring at me like I'd just revealed I was secretly in the CIA. I turned toward the bar. If they wanted answers, they could walk over and ask. But for now, I needed a refill. I hadn't even made it 2 steps toward the bar when James turned back around, motioning to the group like he was calling a board meeting. I think there's some confusion about what Sarah does, he said calmly, loud enough for everyone to hear. She doesn't just work in oil and gas, she oversees national disaster response and critical infrastructure resilience. She's the person companies call when their billion-dollar assets are going up in flames. Literally. Jake laughed, quick and sharp. Wait, but she said admin stuff. James didn't smile. You misunderstood. She runs billion-dollar recovery protocols for one of the largest oil and gas consortiums in the country. Dead silence. Carol's wine glass tilted in her hand, her lips pressed into a thin line like someone just read her bank statement aloud, and it wasn't good. Amanda blinked fast, her voice tight. Wait, recovery from what? Anything that breaks, I said. Pipeline ruptures, hurricane damage, cyber attacks on refineries, offshore rig failures. If it can cripple an energy corridor, I have a plan for it before it happens, and a team ready when it does. Tyler raised his eyebrows. You run the response? I nodded. I lead the National Contingency Group. I manage 600 engineers and field operators across 11 states. Jake let out a low whistle, like he was trying to be impressed but couldn't quite get there. No offense, but you don't really look like the type. I smiled. What's the type? He shrugged. I don't know. Someone who wears a suit? They don't hand out budgets like mine to people who look the part, I said. They hand them to people who don't let things explode. Megan leaned forward, her face softening a little. You're really in charge of all that? Yeah, I said. And if I mess up, people die. Supply chains fail. Cities go dark. Tyler's smile faded. Amanda just stared, jaw slightly open. James stepped in again, voice calm and controlled. Most people don't realize how fragile our infrastructure really is. A single cyber breach, a bad storm, one missed valve reading. And you're looking at environmental fallout, economic collapse, even national security implications. Her job is to stop those dominoes before they fall. Amanda turned to me slowly. But why didn't you ever say any of this? I tried, I said. Years ago. You thought I was bragging? Carol scoffed. Come on, no one thought that. I stared her down. You once told people I was playing secretary for oil men. She flinched. I don't play anything, I said. Tyler rubbed the back of his neck. So you're not just managing spreadsheets? No, I said. I sign off on multi-million-dollar emergency response packages. I authorize aerial surveillance for leaks. I decide when to shut down refinery units during national crisis drills. My team's response time determines whether the country keeps running or hits a wall. Jake scratched his head. I had no idea. That's because you didn't ask. Amanda looked like she wanted to shrink into her wedding dress. James turned toward the tent again, giving me a short nod of respect before stepping away. The man had made his point. Loud and clear. I stood there, surrounded by relatives who'd written me off for a decade, watching their faces try to catch up with what they just heard. Carol swirled her wine, eyes darting like she was searching for an exit. Well, that's more responsibility than I realized. Yeah, I said. It is. Amanda crossed her arms, still stunned. So when you said portfolio management, you meant national energy stability, I said. That's my portfolio. No one spoke. I let the silence stretch, watched the party behind them spin on without noticing. Same music, same lights. But out here, the whole room had changed. Amanda's voice cracked the silence like glass under a heel. Why didn't you ever say anything? I looked at her, still clutching that tiny beaded clutch like it could protect her from the answer. Because you never asked, I said. Everyone made up their minds about me years ago. Her mouth opened like she was going to push back, but nothing came out, just a blink. My mom stepped closer, her tone a lot softer than before. You never told us, Sarah. I looked straight at her. I didn't hide it. You never listened. Her face shifted, not angry, not defensive, just stunned, like it was finally sinking in how much she'd missed. Carol let out a quiet breath, probably trying to pretend she wasn't part of the problem. Megan stayed dead silent. Jake still looked like he was waiting for a punchline. Tyler cleared his throat and tried to pivot. So, do you work with the government at all? I nodded. Federal Disaster Response. Homeland Security. State Emergency Command. I get briefings I can't talk about. We work hand in hand on every major event from California wildfires to Gulf hurricanes. Amanda raised her eyebrows. Seriously? Seriously, I said. He looked me up and down, confused like he was trying to reconcile the person in front of him with the one they'd all assumed I was. And they trust you with that? I didn't flinch. Yeah, because I've earned it. My mom's arms were crossed now, but not defensive. More like she was holding something in. Her voice came out quieter this time. I just don't understand how we didn't know. I let out a short laugh. You didn't want to. Every time I came home, someone would bring up how Amanda was going to marry Rich, or how Jake just sold a bunch of property. You thought I was behind because I didn't bring a guy or a big announcement to Thanksgiving. Amanda bit her lip, like she knew I wasn't wrong. Carol finally spoke. But you never corrected us. Why would I asked. You already had the story written. Tyler rubbed his chin, still trying to sound smart. Is that why you're always traveling? Those emergency things? Yeah, I said. I was in Louisiana last month. Before that, Alberta. Before that, West Texas. When things go wrong, I go and Amanda looked down at her shoes. I thought you were just too busy for us. I was busy, I said, but not in the way you thought. Jake gave a little shrug, like he didn't know what to do with any of this. I mean, damn. My mom stepped in again. Why didn't your dad say something? I glanced across the yard. He was still over by the drinks table, pretending he wasn't listening, but I knew better. He thought it wasn't his place, I said. And honestly? He was right. They all stood there, stunned, guilty, unsure. I don't need validation, I added. I do my job so people can keep their lives running without ever knowing how close they came to losing everything. Megan whispered, That's heavy. Yeah, I said. It is. But I didn't apologize for it. Megan gasped and took a step closer, eyes wide. Wait, you work with Homeland Security? I nodded. Homeland, FEMA, state-level response teams, emergency management centers. Depends on the threat. Carol blinked fast, clearly scrambling to recategorize me in her mental filing cabinet. I kept going. Last month, I was in Louisiana, overseeing an emergency response after a pipeline rupture. Crude leaked into a marshland near a residential zone. We had 3,000 personnel on site, $900 million in assets deployed, around-the-clock drone surveillance, chemical neutralizers, and coordinated logistics between state, federal, and private partners. Amanda made a small sound, like she couldn't believe what she was hearing. Jake looked stunned. 3,000 people? Yeah, and we still had to work around local politics and a hurricane warning. Tyler finally shut up. My mom's voice came out in a stutter. But you live in that tiny apartment. I turned and met her eyes. Because I don't need a house to impress people. I care about doing my job right. That shut her up. James walked back over then, hands in his pockets, looking me over like I was some kind of case study. Not judgmental, just analyzing. You run the thing people panic about when it breaks, he said, and no one even knew. Exactly, I said. Jake scratched the back of his head. So, what happens when it goes really bad? It always goes bad, I said. That's why I'm there. I don't get called unless it's already screwed. Megan looked uneasy. But how do you even sleep? Badly, I said, shrugging. But I didn't pick this for comfort. I picked it because it matters, Carol muttered. You've always been like this. So serious. I have a serious job, I said. It's not just meetings and safety drills. It's evacuations, asset protection, environmental fallout, political damage control. One wrong decision can cost lives. Amanda's eyes darted around like she was trying to do the math. You never said anything at Christmas. Or at dinner that one time. You asked about my dating life, I said. You wanted small talk. This isn't small. Tyler finally spoke again, slowly this time. And you run all of it? I nodded. I report directly to the executive board. There's no one above me except the chairman. James gave a low whistle. And here we are thinking you were some office clerk. I didn't say anything. Let them sit in it. My mom still looked dazed. But if you're that important, why don't you have people doing this for you? I do, I said, but I don't delegate what I don't understand. And I've been on the ground too many times to sit in an ivory tower now. My team needs to know I've done it myself. Amanda's voice was quiet. I thought I had it all figured out. That you just settled. You thought wrong. James was still watching me, head slightly tilted like he was solving a puzzle. You know, he said finally, you could walk into any Fortune 100 boardroom and own it. Hell, most of them don't know half of what you do. I'm not interested in applause, I said. I'm interested in keeping things from falling apart. He nodded, slow. That's the difference. You're not trying to be seen. You're trying to do something exactly. My mom stepped up beside me and gently tugged my arm. Can we talk for a second? I followed her a few steps away from the group. Her voice dropped low. I feel like a fool, she said, eyes wet but not crying. I honestly didn't know. I just thought, you were doing okay. Not, this I didn't say anything right away. She'd finally stopped assuming. That was enough for now. Carol stood frozen near the patio lights, clutching her wine like it was her last defense. Still stunned, still quiet. A rare state for her. Amanda finally broke the silence. You never looked important, she said, head tilted like she was trying to figure me out for the first time. I shrugged. It's not a fashion show. That got a weak laugh out of Megan. Tyler rubbed his mouth like he wanted to disappear. Jake gave a slow exhale. So what is your title? Director of National Contingency Operations. Amanda blinked. You're a director? Yes, I said. I lead cross-sector emergency coordination for 11 states, manage 600 people, and own decision authority on high-risk, high-speed events. Carol finally found her voice. So, wait, who do you even report to? My reports go straight to the board, I said. I don't go through a manager. I don't answer to middlemen, Tyler whistled. Damn. Amanda stepped forward, voice quieter now. And this is all, like, national security? I nodded. My work is national security adjacent. We coordinate with federal departments, review classified threat briefings, and prep for worst-case scenarios most people never hear about. Jake leaned against the railing, all the smugness drained out of him. You ever feel like the weight's too much? Sometimes, I said. But that's why I train people who can carry it with me. Carol shook her head slowly. You always were the quiet one. No, I said. You just weren't listening. My mom reached for my hand. You should have told me. I tried, I said. Every time you changed the subject, every time you asked if I was dating someone or why I didn't buy a house, I tried. You just didn't hear it. She looked down at the grass. I'm sorry. I gave her hand a squeeze, then let go. I wasn't mad anymore. I was just tired of shrinking to fit other people's comfort. Amanda folded her arms, still studying me like I was a stranger. I didn't know you had all this going on. I know, she frowned. I thought you were just floating. I wasn't floating. I was holding the line. They looked at me like they were seeing me for the first time because they were. My mom stood close beside me, still processing. She looked down at her shoes, then up at me. Is that why you missed so many holidays? All those years? I didn't hesitate. Hurricanes, refinery explosions, wildfires, pipeline sabotage, cyber attacks that nearly took out regional power. I wasn't skipping Thanksgiving to relax. I was coordinating threat response in real time. Her mouth opened, then closed. Her voice was barely above a whisper. You never said. I wasn't going to call from a command trailer and explain why I was sleeping 4 hours on a cot between emergency briefings. Carol turned toward me, her face finally showing something besides judgment. But, is it safe? Sometimes, I said. Sometimes not. But it matters, Jake gave a low whistle. Megan just shook her head. I thought you were just off doing paperwork, my mom said quietly. No, I was running teams through chemical decon drills, managing evacuation coordination, negotiating airspace clearance for emergency flight operations. Amanda swallowed. That sounds like military stuff. We work with them sometimes, I said, especially if it's cross-border. Tyler blinked like someone just rewired his brain. How come we've never heard about any of this? Because I didn't need you to hear it, I said. I needed to do it. Then I saw James walking back across the patio, hands tucked in his pockets, that unreadable expression on his face again. He stopped in front of me and offered his hand. Sarah, I meant what I said earlier. What you do, it's the real deal. I shook his hand again, firm, professional. You ever think about speaking at conferences? He asked. We've got a board strategy summit in DC next quarter. I'd love to get you in front of our partners. I shook my head. I appreciate it, sir. But this isn't a keynote gig. It's my actual job. He smiled, not disappointed, just respectful. Fair enough, Amanda raised an eyebrow. You turned that down fast. It's not what I'm here for, I said. My mom stepped a little closer, like she was just now realizing how far away she'd been. We really didn't know, she said again. I know, I said. Carol glanced over. You could have said something years ago. I looked her dead in the eye. Would you have listened? She didn't answer. Jake exhaled. You think we've just been dumb? No, I said. You've been focused on your own stories. I just stopped trying to add mine to the pile. James gave me one more nod. If you change your mind, he said, that invitation stands. I think a lot of people in that room could use a reminder that real leadership doesn't always show up in a designer suit. Noted, I said. He turned and walked off. I looked back at the group, still stunned, still digging through every memory where they'd missed the signs. That was fine. They didn't need to catch up all at once. But now they knew. The music picked back up inside the tent, some slow pop song about forever love. Amanda's wedding kept spinning like nothing happened, champagne flowing, heels clicking, people dancing in rented shoes. But out on the edges, something had shifted. I could feel eyes following me, not in that petty family way, not the usual, why isn't she married yet glances, or what's with the shoes smirks. Number. This was different. Now it was the whispering kind, the did you hear kind. Apparently, she works with the feds. I heard she leads disaster response or something. I thought she was just an assistant. I didn't chase any of it down. Let them wonder. Let it spread on its own. Near the appetizers, I saw my mom talking to some old church friend, one of those women who always smelled like peppermint and judgment. My mom touched her arm, leaned in with a soft smile. This is my daughter, she said. She's a national operations director. I raised my eyebrows but didn't interrupt. I'd never heard her say that out loud before. Not once. Jake passed behind me with a glass of something dark in his hand and a smirk on his face. Should have worn a suit, huh? He said. I smiled. They don't hand out budgets like mine to people who look the part. They hand them to people who earn it. His smirk faded just a little. He nodded. Fair enough. Megan gave me a small thumbs up from across the dance floor. For once, I didn't mind the attention. A couple more cousins came by. One asked for my card. Another asked if I'd be open to mentoring her nephew. I gave a polite, we'll see. I wasn't trying to start a family internship program. Then, while I was standing under one of those glowing patio heaters, just watching the lights on the vineyard flicker against the sky, I felt a hand on my shoulder. I turned. It was my dad. He didn't say anything at first, just looked at me the way dads do when they're holding something in. Then he nodded once. I'm proud of you. I tilted my head. Since when? Since always. Then why didn't you ever say anything? Why didn't you tell them? He shoved his hands in his pockets. Because it wasn't my place. You deserved to choose when they found out. I stared at him for a second, trying to find the usual irritation, the frustration that he'd stayed quiet when he could have corrected every lie. But it wasn't there. You could have at least said I wasn't just pushing paper. I could have, he said, but then they'd think I was just covering for you. This way, they heard it from you. The real way. I nodded, slow. You think they actually get it now? Some of them, he said. Enough of them. He looked back toward the dance floor. Amanda was laughing with Tyler, but her eyes kept flicking over to me, like I was an unexpected guest at her own wedding. one she hadn't planned for, one she couldn't quite place. My dad clapped my shoulder once, firm. Let them talk, he said. You earned every word of it. And just like that, he walked off toward the bar. I stayed right there under the heater, arms crossed, listening to the music and the low murmur of people still trying to piece together who I actually was. 3 months later, I got the call. Vice President of Critical Operations. I didn't celebrate. No champagne, no Instagram post. I closed the email, put my phone down, and got back to the briefing I was prepping on refinery cybersecurity vulnerabilities. 2 hours later, my mom called crying. I told my bridge group about you, she said through sniffles. I told them my daughter runs National Energy Response. I printed out that Forbes article they quoted you in. Mom, I said, don't cry. I'm just proud, that's all. I didn't know I could feel this kind of proud I didn't say anything. Some things didn't need correcting. The next day, I got a card in the mail from Jake. Cheap drugstore paper, handwriting messier than I remembered. Didn't know, should have asked. Jake, no return address. Just that. A week after that, Amanda called. No intro, no small talk. Tyler's firm wants to bring you in, she said. To run a leadership workshop? They'd pay well. Really well. I leaned back in my chair. I'm not for hire. It's just one day. No, I said. What I do isn't for sale. She got quiet. I do it so people can live their lives without knowing what almost went wrong, I said. Your firm wants a slogan. I don't have time for that. Okay, she said finally. I get it. I didn't think she fully did, but I appreciated the effort. They all thought I'd settled, that I took some invisible back office job because I couldn't hack it somewhere louder, flashier. They thought wrong. I didn't settle. I chose something bigger, bigger than a title, bigger than proving anything at a wedding. And now finally, they saw it. Not because I changed, but because they looked for the first time.